My name is Von Trammell. Thank you for joining me for this evening's inaugural broadcast of the Leather Journal Online. Today is Wednesday, July 22nd, and welcome to This Week in Leather. Our top stories include Alaskan Love from Northern Exposure, wild weather at San Diego's Pride Festival, a special report on PrEP and cisgender women, and we'll take a look at the weather you'll experience if you're headed out to Dory Alley, Ohio Valley Drummer, or Mr. Kentucky Leather. We're going to find out more about emotional support and suicide prevention efforts out of Indianapolis, and we'll close with an editorial from our own publisher, Dave Rhodes. This weekend, Pantheon nominee, the Alaska Center for Alternative Lifestyles, was home to the 6th annual Northern Exposure. ACAL is the brainchild of International Miss Leather 2013 Sarah Shabak. Northern Exposure is produced by Foxfinder Productions. Each summer, entertainers and educators from all aspects of the community travel to Anchorage, Alaska to share their passions with the folks in the farthest reaches of the U.S. This year, Mistress Lily and Hooker were among 15 presenters who made the journey for the 3-day event. Vendors, classes, and parties filled a jam-packed weekend that surely didn't disappoint. Attendees came from all over the world, including Baltimore, New York, and even as far away as France. The Dirty Uncles, Red and Hooker, took some time out of their evening fun to share this with Mistress Lily.
Hey everybody, greetings from Northern Exposure. What an awesome, incredible time. The Dirty Uncles have had a blast. You know, it was so cool. We got to bring Miss... Saw that flogging. We were so excited we were able to introduce Mr. Friendly to Alaska and announce that they will be setting up their own team. Thank you everybody, and if you can get here,
do it.
Come, bring sunglasses. And
sunscreen. I got a bath. By the way, it's now what is it, like 9:30 at night? Wait, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Do you see this?
It's 10:30 at night.
10:30 at night. It's 10:30 at night. And you could easily just not sleep here for a long time.
We're from the East Coast.
Yeah.
And it's 2:35 at home.
Yeah. What are your names again?
Red.
And I'm Hooker. What are our names?
Yeah.
We're just the Dirty Uncles.
Yeah, we're the Dirty Uncles is what we are, and they dragged us here from the East Coast, and I think we'll be back.
See you at Imsel. We'll be hospitable.
Foxfinder Productions arranged to hold the event in both the ACAL building as well as an adjacent building, offering Northern Exposure attendees 9,000 square feet to learn, play, and connect with others from all over the country. Sarah shared with us that Northern Exposure served almost 700 meals over the course of the event, proving that Alaskan hospitality feeds your mind, body, and soul. San Diego Pride is home to a leather exposure and education area known as the Leather Realm. It's manned by a dedicated group of leather folk from all over the San Diego area. Educators even came from as far as San Francisco this year to teach the throngs of knowing and curious alike. It's not unusual for the realm to see upwards of 10,000 visitors during the course of a festival. This year, though, Tropical Storm Dolores had other plans. The storm dumped 1.5 inches on Saturday's Parade and Festival in just under an 8-hour period. The streets of San Diego. This footage was taken just up University from Hillcrest by American leatherman Dominic Chevalier. It also flooded 21st, 2015. The doors of Dungeon Servetus in downtown San Diego closed for the last time. Servetus's owner, Domina Angelina, decided last month that it was time to close the brightly colored play space, familiar to so many from Southern California, after a series of health issues. Servetus family member and my friend, Matthew McCauley, I think said it best on his Facebook page. The Servetus family remembers the firsts, the lasts, the love, the people who've come and gone. We've watched the sun set and rise together. The family members we have lost and the things we have taught each other. Our hearts break today, but our family is not between walls. It's all over the world, never to be broken. July 20th. Theater will be taking contestants from Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia this year. It will split as demand and participation grows in the future. Weather for those planning on attending the Ohio Valley Alliance's regional and drummer contests this weekend will be warm with lows in the mid-60s. A $2 cover each night ensures it will be a weekend of hot leather fun. Fact: 84% of HIV infections among women are attributed to heterosexual sex. Fact: women accounted for 20% of new HIV infections and 25% of new AIDS diagnoses in 2011. 51% of new infections occur in women between the ages of 13 and 44. 3 years ago, this week, Truvada was approved by the FDA for HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP. After the FDA approval on July 16, 2012, PrEP use increased more than 8-fold, going from about 150 users in 2011 to 1,274 users the following year, and 48% of those users were women. Newer reports are sketchy at best due to the division of treatment versus prevention and some incongruent reporting. But the purpose of this story is to share the fact that there is now something women who want to control their own sexual health can do. Now we have a choice when it comes to preventing the contraction of HIV. The high percentage of women initially using PrEP may seem surprising to many viewers, considering that the majority of the conversation about PrEP thus far has been conducted within and between members of the gay men's community and those who provide them with medical care. Following suit, the advertising you've seen has been geared towards gay men. One ad in particular, featuring Mr. Los Angeles Leather, Eric Paloya, sparked a parody photo shoot. As it turns out, though, there was another group eager for it to come on the market: cis women who were waiting to conceive or reduce the potential of HIV infection while in serodiscordant relationships. These are relationships wherein one negative partner and one positive partner exist. These women who love men who happen to have HIV were waiting for PrEP. In 2014, an article from betablog.org blogger Heather Borner interviewed Dr. Gina Brown, a medical officer with the National Institutes of Health Offices of AIDS Research, who manages planning for studies of HIV treatment and risk for women and girls. Brown stated, "Before PrEP, there was no real option for women. When we talked about prevention, before PrEP, the message was always, use a condom. But women don't use condoms, men do, and even female condoms require cooperation from men." During the 2013 Conference on Retroviruses and Opportunistic Infections, CROI, a misconception started among convention goers that PrEP didn't work in women. It's believed that this was due to inconclusive trials which were canceled due to women failing to take the pill during the trial. In 2011, the Vaginal and Oral Interventions to Control the Epidemic, VOICE, and FemPrep trials determined that studies were unlikely to demonstrate efficacy. It wasn't that the drugs weren't working, it was that the women weren't participating by taking the pills as instructed. Studies in other countries, however, show that Truvada for PrEP, when used consistently, work in men and women. 2 of these studies in Africa proved the risk of infection dropped between 62 and 75% in the average user. But when blood tests from the Partners PrEP study in Kenya and Uganda indicated detectable drug in the users, results showed the antiretroviral drug PrEP could cut the risk of transmission to the uninfected partner by 90%. Last week, TLJ Mark 4:30. Oklahoma. Earlier this week, I spoke with Minneapolis, Minnesota leather woman Aurora Lee about her personal journey with PrEP. We're going to make PrEP part of your platform, whether you like it or not. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me. And I'd like you to tell me, first of all, a little bit about your story and how you came about to wanting to be on PrEP, and then your journey. You had mentioned that to me earlier that you had some difficulties getting onto PrEP, and what you had to do to overcome those problems.
So I found out about PrEP shortly after it had come out, a couple of years ago. I have always been my sexual health has been something that I feel very responsible about for myself, and I like to do what I want. So I'm going to protect myself in every facet possible. So I get STD tested quarterly. So every 3 months, I get the full panel. That in itself is a thing, because every single time I go in and I say, I want all of them, they're like, there's no reason for all of them. And I said, I want all of them. And I make them do it. But now they don't do that. 4 or 5 years after that, they're finally okay with that. But I found out about PrEP. I am super into blood sports. I love everything about blood, needles, all of it, like knives, cutting blood in general. And because of that, sometimes I like to mix my blood and another partner's blood together. And I thought one day about how, though I have this conversation about, do you know your status? Have you done it? I have to trust that person 100%. And there are times that I do pick up play, and sometimes blood play is one of those things. Since there are so few and far between people who are actually into that type of thing, it's hard to find a partner. And when you find one, you're kind of like, hey, let's just do this. And so I started looking at, there's no way to protect yourself from HIV when you're doing blood play. You are taking that risk no matter what. You can't put a condom on that. So when I heard about PrEP, I was like, oh my God, yes, need this in my life now. Like, if I can take a blue pill every single day and just not necessarily have to worry about it as much, please, yes, sign me up now. I'll pay $1,800 a month just to be on it. Like, if that's what it comes down to. Now, I didn't seek out a prescription for it right away. Just because I ended up getting into a car accident and wasn't able to play anyway. So I wanted to get myself better. But when I started seeking out to get back on, to actually get on it, I walked into a clinic that specializes in STD testing. It's a sexual health clinic. That's what they do. They're all about protecting sexual freedom, all of that jazz. And I sat down with the lady and I said, first, I'm here to get on PrEP. And the words out of her mouth were, what is PrEP? And to walk into a sexual health center a year ago and have them say, what is PrEP to me, was shocking. So I literally pulled out my smartphone and I Googled it, and I had her watch the little video that describes what it's about, because I was like, I can tell you, but here, watch this thing that's put out by the actual company who creates it, and you'll have a better understanding. I do blood sports. And she went, what the hell is that? And I proceeded to explain to her what blood sports were. She proceeded to tell me not to do that and that she wasn't prescribing me PrEP. Okay, I was devastated by the fact that I was denied the ability to protect myself with something that was clearly produced for that purpose. So I left it alone. 3 months later, went back, Did the same gamut. Got the same response. I'm not prescribing you PrEP. Okay. I waited another 3 months. Did it again. Got told the same thing. Now, yes, I was going back to the same place, did not see the same person. So then in February of this year, at a panel in Minneapolis during one of our contests, they had What is PrEP? A panel to get it out into the community more. And I was one of the only females who showed up at the panel. And all of the information provided was geared towards gay men. There was one female on the panel to assist, answer questions. And one of the questions I asked was, why is it so difficult for me to get PrEP? I was basically told that after the panel, they would come talk to me because that's more than what they could say in front of everyone. And I said, okay, that's cool. I get that I'm like the one and only special token woman. I get it. So they came and talked to me afterwards. Their advice to me was to literally go into my doctor and tell them, I'm having sex with an HIV positive person. I need PrEP. I don't want to do that. That's blatantly what I said. I was like, I don't want to lie. So I decided to go to a different clinic. I went to my primary care physician for the 4th time and just was like, I'll just pay for all the testing because I had been getting it for free through the other clinic. I was like, I'll just pay for it one time, see if it matters, see if they'll prescribe it. If I get the same answer, at least I tried a different avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Sat down with my doctor. I basically said, hey, I want to get on PrEP. He was like, why? Basically, same reaction. You're a cisgendered woman. Yep. Why do you want to get on PrEP? Like, what's the point? He's like, I know, because he knows about my interaction with leather and BDSM and all of my partners, and he knows all of that. But he's just like, I don't understand why. And I said, I want to protect myself for the what ifs. I want to have control of my sexual health. And he goes, okay, we'll do it. I decided to go to a different clinic. I went to my primary care physician for the 4th time and just was like, I'll just pay for all the testing because I had been getting it for free through the other clinic. I was like, I'll just pay for it one time, see if it matters, see if they'll prescribe it. If I get the same answer, at least I tried a different avenue. Mm-hmm. Sat down with my doctor. I basically said, hey, I want to get on PrEP. He was like, why? Basically, same reaction. You're a cisgendered woman. Yep. Why do you want to get on PrEP? Like, what's the point? He's like, I know for 9 months of being told that because I'm a woman, I wasn't allowed to be on it, or I didn't need to be on it. And I feel like anyone who wants to be on PrEP should have access to it as if it is the birth control pill for a woman, because they want to hand that out like it's going out of style. So, or condoms at Pride. You can go by and pick up a handful of them and stuff them in your pocket. It should be just as easy to get PrEP as it is to get condoms. I think they should both be used at the same time, but I don't think that it should be limited to gay men. But I went through 9...
I think is the biggest misconception about cis women and trans men, for that matter. What do you think is the biggest misconception facing us?
I think the biggest misconception is that we don't have the same amounts of sex and that we don't have promiscuous sex, that we don't have, that we're monogamous people who just want to have babies. Honestly, I mean, not that isn't, they can't be the same thing, but I just think that there's that this is a man's world is still a thing. And I also think that it might not be within the leather community because it's not. I wouldn't be sitting here if it was. But we also have to recognize that doctors and nurses, they get fed information from a higher up. And that higher up is telling them this is for gay men. There isn't information for cis women.
I was going to say, speaking of our government, the Office of Women's Health, they have a list of things that you and I can do to prevent HIV.
Oh, what is it? Tell me.
Okay, the list is, in this order, from their website. We can practice abstinence. We can get tested and know our statuses. We can use condoms. We can practice monogamy.
Okay.
We can talk with our partners. We can limit our sexual partners while we're practicing monogamy. Just, because, I don't know, their list has to be longer. We can use protection for all types of sexual encounters. Because we're using condoms already. Not that there aren't dental dams and other things, but again, their list needs to be longer.
Right.
You can understand the limitations of birth control against STDs.
There is none. Like, birth control does not protect against it.
We cannot use Nonoxynol 9 while having sex with a potentially infected partner. Because we don't understand that birth control methods don't control STDs. We can get screened for STDs. We've already been over that. We cannot douche. We cannot abuse alcohol or drugs that are linked to increased risky behaviors. These are the things that our government says that we can do.
We can also get on PrEP.
Oh, wait. No. According to the Office of Women's Health, quote, I'm quoting, there is no current way for women to prevent getting infected by HIV by taking medications before being exposed to the virus. But research is exploring possibilities. Hold on, it gets better. A new study showed that the oral HIV drug Truvada may help some people. Their website has not been updated since 2011. This is the Office for Women's Health of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Our government. Doing the best for women's health. Not that either of us are surprised about this.
No.
What are your feelings?
It doesn't surprise me. Basically, by standing up and myself going to the doctor and asking for it and educating my doctor on it. Now, surprisingly, my doctor had known what Truvada was and what PrEP was, because he has gay patients.
Okay.
So for him, he knew.
What do you think is... Women in the LGBT and leather community have fought for 30 years for information about this disease. We had to risk our health during the 80s while we learned about what it was. Into the 90s, our women became surrogate sisters. They provided hospice care when medical professionals wouldn't out of fear, ignorance, or prejudice. Do I feel everyone should be on PrEP? Certainly not. However, in a community of risk takers, I do feel the CDC and government should continue to actively provide every woman with information about each and every option available to help make the correct choices for each individual's health and well-being. We have contacted the OWH and have not, as of this production, Wednesday morning, July 23rd, received an answer as to why their website is so severely out of date or what their current recommendations about women and PrEP usage are. Welcome back. Tonight we're going to hear from Tammy Evanow, Miss Great Plains Olympus Leather, who spoke with me Monday to discuss No One Left Behind. It's a grassroots effort she and her title husband began shortly after they won their titles last November. These efforts were tragically kicked into high gear in May after the suicide of Mr. International Olympus Leather 2012 and Indianapolis local leather sir Gregory Slavin. Greg was a key member of the Great Plains leather scene and was also a member of the IML 2014 class. Here's that conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit today about No One Left Behind. Can you tell me a little bit about how the idea came around? I know it didn't get off the ground quickly, but how did it come about with you and Mac?
Well, after we won our titles, we had kind of discussed what we would like to do with our title year and kind of batted around a few ideas and kind of thought about a few different things. And recently in Kentucky, there have been a few people, not necessarily in my immediate area, but there have been several people that have struggled with depression. Some people have been victims of some domestic violence, and there have been some increased attempts and completions of suicide. And my professional background is that I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and so I felt like that was something that I could really lend some level of expertise to. And so I felt strongly about that, and that was something that I could contribute and make some sort of an impact. And so we talked together about it and decided that we were going to put together a pamphlet, and it sort of grew from there into pens and magnets. And unfortunately, we were kind of going a little bit at a snail's pace. And then unfortunately, we also had a suicide completion in our region that touched a lot of us. And it was a great loss for us. And so that sort of kicked us a little bit more into overdrive and pushed us forward a little bit more with getting things out and getting things done. So we had to kind of speed it up after that. So that was kind of where the impetus came from.
Okay. And what are you doing in terms of outreach, and where can people find these pamphlets?
Well, at this point, myself and Mac are the primary people that are in possession of them. I have sent out file copies of them to several people. We created a Facebook page called No One Left Behind, and we've had a lot of hits and a lot of likes on that page. And we've actually copied and pasted a lot of the information and a lot of the resources that are listed in the pamphlet. And if anybody wants copies of those, or if they want the file themselves so that they can print some, so that they can put them in whatever spaces that they deem are appropriate, then we're more than happy to send them the file. It certainly doesn't have to be the pamphlet that we have. Getting them out there is the most important thing. So if anybody sends us a message to the No One Left Behind page, then we'll take care of getting them pins or getting brochures mailed to them. And we've had lots and lots of requests. And now that we have pamphlets and we actually have pins in our hands, we'll be working on getting those out to people.
Awesome. And we are going to make that pamphlet available on the Leather Journal for you. It's going to be available at theleatherjournal.com/no-one-left-behind. And the PDF format of that is going to be made available. Mr. Rhodes is allowing us to do that. So
Great.
We'll be able to get that out there. The pins you spoke about, do you have one with you?
I do have one with me. It's in this little bitty bag. I don't know if you can see it.
Up to the
I
camera.
have no idea where the camera is.
Up at the top
Look at
of your
that.
screen. There you go.
There you go. It's a tiny little pin
It's upside down.
for a vest.
Come up towards the center of the top, hun.
And
There you go.
it was designed by myself and Mac and his wife, Ree. And we tossed a lot of things back and forth and decided which one we liked. And moved a little bit of here and moved a little bit of there and changed this color and made this larger. And we even got some help from one of our IML brothers and who does some graphics work. And he helped us do some really cool stuff. And that's actually the final version. And it's really pretty. And it is the Leather Pride colors with the red heart in the center. And it has a suicide awareness ribbon in the center of the heart. There's actually more than one color. The yellow ribbon is also for suicide awareness, but we actually picked the blue and the violet color to be a part of our pin. So they're really pretty. I'm really proud of them. Mac worked primarily on the pins and with help from Ree. And I worked on the brochures and got a lot of help from people that are professional peers of mine. And I have students sometimes in the during the semester, and they were very helpful too, reviewing and proofreading and helping do things for me. So we're pretty proud of, I think they're a good resource, and it's not something, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to put something together to let people know what resources are already there and what places that they can reach out to and where they can actually find some resources. And everything that's on there I actually tested myself. So I know that they work and that they're available because I didn't trust them.
Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today and tell us a little bit about your campaign. I know the losses your community have suffered have touched a lot of people, and I learned something today, that it's not just about suicide prevention. It's about helping anybody who needs it. So that was not just about suicide prevention. It's about getting help to those who need it. So again, thank you so much for meeting with us today, and we will see you in Atlanta if I don't see you sooner.
We'll be there in Atlanta, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Now, before we announce our winners, as Joe mentioned at the beginning of the competition, we use Olympic scoring. Well, that didn't work tonight because we had a tie. All points from all 7 judges had to go into the mix. So, contestant number 1, Pup Spaz. Contestant number 2, Sea Wolf. Contestant number 3, Pup Grizzly. Contestant number 4, Pup Incus. And contestant number 5, Pup Trash. Let's give these contestants a huge round of applause. They have really worked their tails off. We're going to bring everybody. Joe, are we ready? Our first runner-up for International Puppy 2016, Pup Grizzly.
Hey, Patty's recording!
You know this is going to the Leather Journal, right?
Hello, Leather Journal audience. This is
As I
Patty, Info
mentioned,
2014.
this was so close. Joseph, step to the side. Joe, step over. They don't want to see your ass.
Yeah! No!
Now for the moment we've all been waiting for. International Puppy 2016 Pup Incus!
This next story was supplied to Weekend Leather by Rough Ray of GreatLakesDen.net. Saturday night, J.B. Gummibärchen of Chicago took home the Mr. Midwest Rubber 2015 title at Touche in Chicago. Mr. Chicago Leather 2005 Jeff Willoughby was the MC for this year's contest. This year's judges were Joey McDonald, IML Executive Director, Laura Petrielli-Pulius, owner and designer of Vex Clothing, Joe Spaceman, Mr. Midwest Rubber 2014, Rubber Ryan, Mr. Vulcan Leather 1998, and Louise Tapatasig, Mr. Chicago Leather 2015. This next story was supplied to
Mr. Midwest Rubber 2014 is coming to a close, but it doesn't mean you won't see me all the time. So, I know, shocking, right? I'm not going to become a hobbit, as you previously had thought. No, but my year has been pretty great. I got to go to a lot of events and spread the gospel word of rubber. Yeah, shut up. Had some really great experiences at Iowa Leather Weekend and got to really, as I say, be the balloon in the cow pasture. Got to teach a lot of leathermen why you can't hug a rubberman when you're wearing your pink vest. But yeah, no, overall it's been great. Got to meet a lot of interesting people, like yourselves, all of you. But no, overall I'm looking forward to seeing what our next elected official brings to the table. See what adventurous ride they take us on. But other than that, I'd like to thank David and Touche for being such an amazing support. I'd also like to thank viewers like you. Actually, it's Boomy Boston, so
First, I want to welcome you to the first video news broadcast of the Leather Journal. Lon Trammell had the idea in her head since she became active with the Leather Journal. She has worked her butt off finding ways to make it work, and here we are, the first video news broadcast of the Leather Journal. I was asked to speak on what makes Dave Rhodes tick. Henry David Thoreau's marching to the beat of a different drummer comes to mind. I don't tell people to allow me to march to my own drummer. I do it anyway. I have never fit the mold that seems to be the birthplace of so many average people, the masses. In my youth, I was completely different from everyone else. Even by kindergarten in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, it was apparent that I would not fit the mold. I was not different on purpose. I was just different. Through much of my life, that undefined difference stood out. While it took me until I was 26 years old to come out of the closet, my being different was more than that. When hitting the bars at Metropolitan Community Church in Ventura, California, I ran into so many LGBT people who tried to fit into a mold, one where people could be comfortable with others like themselves. This pervaded the gay community even in the 1970s. It was in the early 1980s when I first heard the term politically correct, and I had an immediate aversion to it. It was not that I disagreed with many of these positions. It was that I disagreed with the thought processes from which these positions were formed. One position tagged with the PC label was the inclusion of women. I had been for that since junior high school at least. At that age, I wondered why women could not be major league ball players. Why were women being limited? I never factored into the equation the supposed physical limitations. Later, I noticed that there were women's and men's tee areas on golf courses. In many cases, the tees were only a handful of yards apart, such a minuscule edge given that the cup was often 400 yards away or more. I learned that the placing of these tees was more of a way of keeping women in less position or in her place. I did not like that, and I cheered on change, but not because it was the PC expected thing to do, but because it was right and society would benefit from strong and equal more than it would by having one under the thumb of another gender. The society that allows that system not only steals from women, it deprives itself from the full benefits that an unfettered woman can provide. Helen Reddy said it best in her music. Can only men march to the beat of a different drummer, of which Henry David Thoreau writes? Or can others, women, transgenders, extremely masculine, or very feminine people? I believe the different drummer applies outside leather too, while most of us see it in the context of what was the Drummer magazine's motto. What about the Tuggers of the world, the Jefferson Tuggers of the world? He stood out at International Mr. Leather, and he received the loudest and longest ovation I've ever seen in IML, and I've been attending since 1988. The above is not the average person's thought process. It is mine. We often arrive at the same answer, but the math is different. That is the best way I can explain it on the form of a short editorial. As far as my behavior, likes and dislikes, trusts and mistrusts, I have just become my own river, built second by second over time. Do I do something to be purposely different? Seldom. I am so different that there's no need to try to be so. Different is my norm. I'm a man who loves masculine men and masculine scenarios. This reflects on what I read, what movies and television programs I watch, and those with whom I connect. While so, I respect and advocate the likes of Tuggers. Some of the great things that have come about because of my being different are the Leather Journal, Pantheon of Leather Awards, and the International Mr. and Ms. Olympus Leather Contest. I have a strong and strange sense of humor, and that won't change. Most of it is spontaneous. We only hear about outsiders' misconceptions about the leather community. I think that often the leather community has misconceptions about itself. We focus on what we need to focus on what we do and think about ourselves and to worry less about what others think. On occasion, I've caught myself doing or just about to do something based on what others think. When asked, what does leather mean to you? I responded with, it is one of the essences of my being. To me, it is an attitude. If I never saw a piece of cowhide in my life, my attitude would still be the same. I have an attraction to kink and those who are into it. I am clearly on the submissive side, as I can barely even fathom myself being a dominant. As far as dominant submission, pain, bondage, or pleasure and fulfillment, I believe that this is a natural order of things for some people, and I am one of those people. I could be completely nude and still be leather. As one who believes in God and a divine plan, I believe that we leather folk are part of it. How we fit in, that will ebb and flow as history slowly marches on. But God made us the way we are, And to quote Butchman's founder, Steve Sampson, that's a good thing. Act on your dreams. Your dreams will come out of your own brain and being. As strange as they may seem, they are your mind and soul processing things. Be open to as many people as possible. You might not agree, but just listen to what makes them feel good and important. People remember those who lend them an ear, and they also never forget those who have snubbed them. I hope you enjoy the Leather Journal's video news broadcasts and that you'll benefit from them. I hope your lives become richer because of what we do.